Hello, this is Professor Dan Kernler of Elgin Community College, and this is going to be the syllabus for our Mth120 Statistics course online. So we're just going to go through some of those first day things you might see if you were in class about how the class is set up. So here are the course components. We've got it split into 5 different categories. It might seem a little overwhelming at first, but we'll work into what each component is, and you'll get in a good rhythm as the course progresses. The first part is we're calling understanding checks. So your learning is going to be through 2 primary components. You're going to have videos to watch, which I've made. They're like 5 to 10 minutes long, most of them. There are a couple of longer ones in there. You'll take some notes on those. And there's also a website, we'll call it like an online lesson. That's more static, just typical reading through. There are some examples to look at. Take some notes there as well. So then Wednesdays, you'll have a quiz to take in Desire to Learn. You'll have 3 attempts on those, and those are basically just concept checks, making sure you understand the main ideas. So those will be due midnight on Wednesday, or technically 11:59 p.m. on Wednesdays. Next, you'll have what we call weekly practice. So I'm going to have a worksheet for you each week with examples to work through, readings to do, and you can ask me about these. You can post on the discussion board. You can ask for help. These are really, you want to make sure you have these down solid. I don't mind making sure you have the right answer before you go in and take this quiz. So these are weekly practice. These are going to be Fridays. There'll be a quiz in D2L for this. This one you only get 2 attempts. So it's a little more higher stakes, but it's open notes. It's going to be questions exactly from that worksheet. So the idea is you finish the worksheet, you open D2L, you try the quiz based on your answers. If there are any incorrect, you can talk to me about them. You can look at the videos again, redo them. Then you go in for your second attempt, and hopefully you fix any of those that were incorrect the first time. Third component is a project. We're going to break this into 5 different parts. There will be a final report at the end as well. This will be a topic of your choice, but kind of within some databases that I have curated for you. So there's some restrictions, but it's a topic you're going to choose, and then I'm going to structure it, and you'll have questions that you pose, and you'll do some research. And again, that'll be broken in, like, if you think about it, roughly every 3 weeks or so, you'll have a part of that project that will be due. Oh, and I'm going to give you feedback on those, and you can resubmit those within a certain timeline, usually before the next part is due. We'll have a timeline about when you can resubmit and update your grade on those projects. The exams, we're going to have a 3-day window for those. Those are every 4 weeks, and they'll be structured similarly to the weekly practice. So you'll have a worksheet. There'll be questions posed there. It's not multiple choice. You'll be looking at some data, answering some questions, making some graphs. Those, you're not going to be taking a quiz. It's not multiple choice. It's not typing in answers. Those, you're typing up the answers yourself and then submitting. I'm asking you to submit in a Word format to the Dropbox in D2L. That's so I can add comments relatively easily on those. It's easiest for me to grade with those. So you submit those to D2L by the deadline, and then I'll grade those. It usually takes me a few days to grade those and get those back to you. But there's no multiple attempts. It's not multiple choice. That one, you're going to type up all of your answers, make your graphs, paste them into your document, and then upload that document to D2L. Last, we'll have a final exam. The way our schedule works, we've got a unit exam the week before the final exam week. So the final exam is actually just going to be units 1 through 3, because we'll have just had a unit exam on unit 4. So, and that'll be structured similarly. You got a 3-day window. It'll be posted on D2L. You type up your answers and submit your document to D2L. So those are how the course is going to be broken down. If you think about the grading here, we call this a weighted system. So here are those weights. Just to kind of illustrate how this might work, suppose we have a theoretical student who's got these different grades for the different categories. 100% of the understanding checks, right? Because you can redo those 3 times. You're watching the videos. They're pretty basic. Weekly practice, yeah, you get 2 attempts, but they're not always easy. So project, 80%, unit exams, 80%. So this, again, just a theoretical student. So each of those percentages for those weighting categories gets weighted. So like 100%, you get the full 15% then for the understanding checks. For the weekly practice, you're not going to get the full 20%. You're only going to get 90% of that, so you only get 18%. And then similarly for the other 3. So if we look at this particular student's overall grade, we have those weights, so they only get a portion of each category, and then you add up each of those weights to get an overall score, in this case of 85.5%. So that's how your overall grade is going to be computed. You have these different categories and you'll get a portion from each category. So let's talk about how much time you need. You've been taking a lot of online courses over the last couple of years, many of them not by your choosing, but people are getting much better at this than they used to when I first taught this class like 13 years ago. So I do think, though, it's still worthwhile to mention about the time commitment. The general college expectation is 2 hours outside of class for every hour in class. So this class is 4 credits. If this were on campus or if this were a synchronous online class, we would meet 4 hours a week. There's our 4 credits. So we would expect then 8 hours a week outside of class to spend studying, working on homework, project, whatever it would be. That's the standard college expectation. Now this is an asynchronous class. We don't meet. There's no meetings, and so we don't have those 4 hours a week. But the thing you got to remember, and again, I think people are better at this now, but those hours don't just go away, right? They get added on to what was originally going to be 8 hours a week of studying. Now it's 12 hours a week of studying, all on your own time. There's flexibility, but you have to be ready to put in that time. You got videos to watch. You got to try those quizzes. You got to correct stuff you got wrong. You're emailing me. You're posting to the discussion board. You're working on the weekly practice. You got to open up the data. You got to remember how to do that graph. You got to make the graph. You got all of those things take time, and you have to come into the course with the expectation of the time you're going to spend to be successful. All right, last thing I want to talk about is our suggested workflow for how your week should go. Typically, we want to spend the weekend, maybe Monday or so, working on watching the videos and taking some notes on those. Then through Tuesday or so, we're working on the online lessons, making sure we're taking notes. We've got the understanding check. Maybe we're practicing that once. Maybe we're starting the worksheet, the weekly practice. Then Wednesdays, that first quiz is due, the understanding check. That's the concept check from the videos, the one you get 3 attempts. So that one's due Wednesday night. Then Thursday, you're finishing up the weekly practice worksheet. Again, you can email me for tips. You can post to the discussion board. A lot of times that's super helpful because other people are typically going to have similar questions to you. Then Friday, that understanding check, that weekly practice quiz is due in D2L. So that's Friday night. Now, when you have 2 attempts, but only 2, but it's open notes. And again, you can email me questions ahead of time or post them to the discussion board to make sure you have those dialed in before you take that quiz. All right, so attendance. We don't meet, but we expect you to be actively participating. If you're not submitting things, you're not attending. So if I see a week go by, I'm going to reach out what's going on. If there are 2 weeks that go by, I'm going to assume you're not attending. You don't want to continue with the course, and you could be withdrawn from the course. So you got to keep continuing and participating. This isn't submit things when you want. You can do it all at the end. We've got deadlines every week. You have to keep continuing with the course. So some key points. Taking online classes doesn't save you any time. It just gives you flexibility of where you can spend that time, but you have to be ready to spend that same amount of time. You have to really be independent to be successful here. You've got to be good at managing that time. You've got to be motivated. You've got to be willing to reach out, to email me, or post to the discussion board if you have questions. Those are the students that are most likely to succeed. And finally, yes, you're online, you're taking this class, but you're not by yourself. You're really encouraged to ask questions either on the discussion board because people are going to have the same questions as you, or you can email me. So really don't feel bad about asking questions. That's really super important that you reach out when you have questions so you don't get too lost or frustrated as you're going through. So that's it. I hope that clarifies how the class is going to be run. We'll have news posts and weekly guides for what you should be working on each week. Right now, it's pretty important to just jump right in, get started with the week 1 guide so you make sure what you can be working on. There are no assignments due week 1, but then there's 2 weeks worth of assignments due in week 2. So I give you some flexibility on how to get started, but it really is important to get going right away, get started with the first material so you don't fall too far behind.